Hey guys, welcome to the fourth episode of That Show on the Weekend. Here to talk to you about all things tech related. Hey, I'm your host Tyler. This is Steve again with me this week. Steve, how are you?
Good, yourself.
I am doing well. Lots of news topics and also some eclectic topics, as well as a little thing at the end that I like to call a giveaway. If I get 100 subscribers, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Alright, so we're talking, the first topic is what to do with old beater-uppers. Whether they're worth keeping, salvaging, or whether they're like that catalytic converter in your car where you can get more for your money if you rip it out and sell it than you could get for the entire car. It's true.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. So, what do you do with any old beater-up hardwares?
Well, everybody's first reaction is immediately, no, wait, I can do something with this. And first, you have to evaluate if you have an actual thing to do with it. And a lot of the time, So the same thing I do with shopping, I do with anything, really, is you pick it up and you're like, this is really cool. What can I do with it? Do I have a thing in mind with it? And if you don't pick up a new old junky computer, or you'll just have a pile of it like some people.
Yeah, I gave you an old computer that I had.
Yeah, and you have a lot more too.
I got a server, I got this thing and that thing, I got monitors all over the place. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, you just have to ask yourself, is there something I actually can do with this in an immediate sense? Not, oh, I'll hold on to it, maybe something will show up eventually.
So if your answer is no, you don't need it, where should people go to recycle these things? Because you don't want to throw them away.
No, you can't actually throw them away. There's a bunch of things on the motherboard that your capacitors have acids in them, and you can't just throw those into
And
a landfill.
mercury and...
Right. If you do a quick Google search, you can see if your county has a recycling program. And if they do have a recycling program, you can see if it's either a drop-off or if you can drop it off in your recycling bin, and they will pick it up for you. I know Tompkins County, you can actually put your old computer in your recycling bin.
No,
They will dispose of it.
It's like a reuse. You can take.
There's also the reuse center, and they will recycle it on your behalf if they also can't figure out anything to do with it.
Yeah, if you have any of those reuse centers or like tech hobbyist shops, check them out. They might have a recycling program.
You will not get money for it.
Right.
Just, if you're like, oh, I'll sell it for money, if it's like 5 years or older, just don't. You're not getting money for it.
I also find that a lot of people overcharge what their hardware is actually worth. Like,
right.
I've seen like 780s going still for 500, 800.
That's because they still go for that new.
Oh,
They do. I checked it up the other day.
I can't even find any of the 700 series anymore, like on Newegg or anything. I look on Craigslist and eBay. That's the only place I found the 700 series. They're really trying to push the 900 series. But if you are in the marketplace for a new GPU, don't wait for Pascal from NVIDIA if you're really hoping to, because you wait like 6 months or whatever. Because a lot of times but every time you buy something new will come out. So just go and grab whatever you're doing.
Right.
So what about like saving some of the coolers and stuff? Like most of them have stock coolers or big.
Oh, like this.
Yeah. Well, this
isn't worth it.
No. I mean, the FinFET size on this thing is like.
Well, no, it's because you have to have that giant fucking gross black box on it.
Do you?
Yeah. No,
Maybe.
you have to snap that off of there. I've dealt with that before. I may have snapped. There's a computer. May or may not be a work computer, has one less gross black box on it because of reasons.
What's your opinion on like those proprietary parts that try to really direct the airflow and just to keep power supply air separate from like GPU?
If they are proprietary and not widely used, there's probably a reason for it.
They don't work.
they don't work as well as what's out there already.
Right.
And the reason they do a proprietary quick fix kind of thing is because they have a space issue. And in order to save on space, they just make it work.
Do you use aftermarket cooling?
Actually, I mostly buy processors with a stock cooler on them. That seems to work fine.
If you're not overclocking, you really don't need anything more, usually. Unless...
Right. A lot of people like, no, I've got to keep it cooler, and you might save yourself, 10 degrees? Like, an aluminum heatsink is an aluminum heatsink, and yeah, there's more fins and more heat dissipation. But there is a increase if you get, like, a giant fucking heatsink. But there's not enough where you have to really worry about it unless you're really pushing things.
I know on my 8350 here, I had to swap out the stock cooler because it kept punching above the maximum heat, which was 62.
Right.
It was like...
If it's saying it's running too hot, then fix the problem. If it isn't, you don't need to fix the problem.
I ended up getting the Hyper 2 Evil. Hyper 212 Evil. Whatever. This really big one. And it only saves like 10 degrees. I mean, it gets... When it's idle, it's like 32. But when I'm like rendering video...
Of course, this is in Celsius, so a 10 degree Celsius difference...
Yeah.
Or 10 degrees difference in Celsius is a very large jump in Fahrenheit.
That's true. But, well, you know, a lot of these things are measured in Celsius because they're international companies.
Well, also because
They're just
it's
standard.
metric. Metric's much easier to work with.
Yeah, I've often...
It's based off of water temperatures. 100 degrees Celsius, water boils.
Yeah.
And
And 0
And
it
at 0 it freezes. Fahrenheit, 100 degrees is roughly body temperature. And 0 degrees Fahrenheit is when mostly salty water will freeze.
Yeah.
And of course, these are completely valid standard measurements.
The imperial system was created at the founding of the country.
No, earlier than that.
Earlier?
Earlier than that.
It's barbaric.
Yeah, an inch in imperial is roughly the size of your thumb.
I have a big thumb.
Right.
Like an
You have a big thumb.
People also...
had smaller hands back then.
Yeah, people grew with time.
Yeah, but like an inch was a roughly thumb size, and a foot was roughly foot size.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, about 12 thumbs equals a foot. And yeah, it was very popular in Egypt, where the measurement kept changing because the pharaohs kept dying.
Yeah.
So you measure the new pharaoh.
There's that one pharaoh who lived to like 96 and
Too
he
old.
made a pyramid and then he started making more things. He's like, I guess I'm just not dying.
Yeah.
Because at the time, 96 was unheard of.
Even now, it's still pretty old.
That's true. My grandmother just turned 100
That's exciting.
last week. Yeah. Yeah.
Too old.
No, it gives me hope.
Oh,
No. I don't drink or smoke. So I have a good
yeah, a
running
lot of
chance.
these people that live that old, though, do still drink and smoke.
Yeah, I don't get it. You know, your teeth falling out. Yeah. Yellow.
I feel stress is the biggest limiting factor.
That's
like,
true.
if you're more stressful or more stressed, you will die sooner.
Take a day.
And, like, these older people just grew up in a time where there was a lot less stress.
Yeah. Take 20 minutes for yourself every day. Lock yourself in a room, a soundproof room, laid back. Put the mood lights on. Just take 20 minutes to yourself every day, and you'll release your stress. If you have a stressful day like college, midterms, just chill it out.
Yeah.
I don't endorse any drugs to help you chill out. This is a family show.
But if that's your thing, I'm not stopping.
Right. Right.
I'm not here to be judgy.
Neither am I.
That was awful judgy.
Yeah.
It was super judgy on your part.
Well, whatever.
That's fine.
So, audio setups. Do you think stereo for games or surround sound? Because I've asked this question on many forums, and everyone's like, stereo, dude, you gotta do the stereo. And I'm like, if I have the opportunity to do surround, it sounds a lot better. People are like, you can't hear footsteps behind you. I'm like, yeah, I can. Most games are 3D support
Right.
sound.
Well,
I like it.
A 2.1 setup is perfect. A lot of people like stereo, your two speakers, perfectly fine, or a nice set of headphones, perfectly fine. The thing that most stereo PC speaker setups have missing is the bass.
Right.
And I've had just 2 speakers and a subwoofer, and you're pretty much okay.
Mm-hmm.
I use a soundbar, but whatever.
No,
It's got all the things in it that I need.
Yeah, I recently switched to Sennheiser 8350 Pros, HD 8350 Pros over any gaming because I had the Skullcandy Player 1, and I feel like they have a life cycle about a year, and then they start breaking internally. Like you hear weird artifacts whenever you try to move your head, or it just snaps in half. I had
Like physically.
Yeah.
It breaks in half.
Yeah, like the sound cup broke off the screws, the plastic literally broke. I had to send it back for a refund. And that was about a year out. And then I got it back, and then it lasted, this new pair lasted just about a year before I started getting those artifacts. And I'm like, weird. And then,
Well, part of, if you're trying to look for nice audio fidelity, part of it is you have to remember that the 3.5mm jack is ancient and will not give you what you want it to anymore.
right.
USB, much better. Fiber optic audio, much better. So a USB pair of headphones will have a lot more audio going down because there's less lost in the whole, we've got to squeeze it out the 3.5mm port.
Well, this one I'm using the 5.4 jack, the longer jack,
Yeah.
out of my amp, and it's the Sennheisers. They're like a 54, 56
And how's your amp
amps.
connected to your desktop?
fiber optic.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah.
It's because you're running a fiber optic cable. Just, you have to be able to get enough audio data through, otherwise it will trim it and make it less good.
Right.
Like, most people are like, oh, I've got a sweet pair of headphones that I plug into my 3.5mm jack, and the drivers on that aren't good. You just go with USB.
Right.
It will just push whatever the fuck it wants out of there, because USB 2.0 is what, 480-ish megabytes per second
Something
speed?
like that.
Yeah, which is a lot better than an audio jack, which
With
is
analog.
right.
But then again, those only work for powered headphones.
Well, no, some headphones can use that as the power too.
Right. I mean, well, you got like 5.5 millivolts, or is it 5.5
Yeah,
volts?
no, that's fine.
5.5.
Most
Yeah.
headphones aren't powered anyway.
Well, the Sennheisers drive their power from the
Right.
receiver.
And you
amp
can get more
thing.
power through a USB port.
Yeah.
So I had a really nice pair of headphones that was just USB, and I plugged them in, and they worked perfectly great, and they were amazing. And my Turtle Beach does USB too, so that's great. It uses the USB for the microphone as well.
That's true.
And the USB microphone is a lot better than trying to squeeze it through.
Well, I got this thing is the Monoprice large It doesn't even have a name. It's just called large diaphragm microphone.
Right.
It's got a product number.
But
But
you run it through a soundboard, and the soundboard connects to your computer.
USB.
USB.
Yes. And it sounds great.
Right, because USB is much better than audio jacks.
Right. Then what about these large XLR cables? I mean, their resistance must be so low in them. That's why they use them.
Right. So those are an older standard. I mean, hell, they're in my school or my elementary school gymnasium used to use them, and that thing was built in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Like, some older technologies are just really good. Like the fiber optic cable's been around since the 80s.
Yeah, that's what the military gave them.
Yeah, just some older technologies under-implemented, like the DisplayPort was implemented years before people started using it.
Yeah.
Like the television started using HDMI, and everybody's like, HDMI's the new thing, let's do that. And
Well,
Display's like,
yeah.
I'm over here, ready, whenever.
It's really weird because my 980 Ti is like only got like one HDMI, and the rest are display ports. It's
Yeah.
got a DVI too, though, which is weird.
Right, the DisplayPort's the better port to use, every time.
Mm-hmm. DisplayPort 1.3 is coming out.
Oh.
The 1.2 is what everyone has right now, but the 1.3 will support what it can support, like 4K 6 or 8K 60 FPS.
Right. The 1.1 display was the big jump, because that one you could just go display on one end and HDMI on the other end without having to have any fancy conversion in the middle.
Right.
And that's when display really started to catch on, because people were like, well, I've got all these HDMI devices and my display port can just switch over to it no probs, and it can do the audio and everything. So when it started realizing that it should put some HDMI capability in there, then yeah, everybody's like, display's the where it's at.
Yeah, because
You don't need
DisplayPort
anything
still
else.
DisplayPort did the one thing right that HDMI still has, and that's a locking mechanism. So if you ever pull your device, your cord won't get yanked out, especially like if you're trying to find something that may have dropped behind your television or your monitor, and you're just like, I
Yeah.
still want to listen, but I'm okay with not
Like,
looking at
we
it.
went
while-
from the cables need to be screwed in to friction's good enough.
Yeah.
Just squeezing it in there, and it'll just hold up on there.
I've never actually had an HDMI cable pull out though.
No, they're, as long as you're not constantly plugging them in and unplugging them in, the friction that holds them in place is good enough.
I had to recut.
Just like your
yeah.
USB cables.
I did have to recut my Ethernet cable though, because I had broke that little tab off, and I was like,
Oh yeah, no, those snap all the time.
I have,
those-
I have a whole plastic thing in there, just of backups. Just
Like
in
it,
case.
it works, the little clicky, snappy thing. But
The BTN connector is who did it right. The British, they created the BTN connector, and that connector is like a locking metal clip, and it's like, if we had used that, we
right.
would have so many of these.
The one thing that HDMI pushes, and I don't 100% understand why, is that the 1.4 HDMI standard includes Ethernet, and no one uses it. Like, the HDMI standard keeps adding things to its standard, and then nobody uses it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, part of the HDMI being able to use Ethernet is that if it's connected to a PC and it's a smart television, it can just use that for the internet connection. But no one does,
because
because that requires another device. Like, Ethernet has to be added somewhere along the lines for that to work.
right, though
Like, you could do a set-top box
Mm-hmm.
that is internet capable just because it's connected to the cable and it acts as a modem for your television, but that would require cable companies to not be dickholes.
Right. What I would like to see more is wireless video transfer.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Like they have it. You can buy like little, one end is like a receiver and the other end's like a display port or something, and then you have an
Oh,
opposite
like
end.
your Chromecasts?
Yeah, I would like to see more of that, but like, you know, 'cause the wireless look in a home theater setup, especially if you have a very simplistic outlook on life and your home reflects that, you might not want a bunch of wires going from someplace down low to your TV, especially if it's mounted up someplace. And if you don't want to spend the money or do it yourself to cut a hole and then cut another hole at top and then just
And then
snake
run them through the
yeah,
drywall.
and then snake the wires down.
Well, one of the
Or if you
nicest-
can't do that, maybe you rent an apartment.
Well, one of the nicer things is you can get a cover for that, and it makes it look like it's one really big cable.
Yeah.
And then you can bedazzle that and cover it in glitter, and now it's part of your decor. Just get like a pool noodle, cut it in half, wrap the cables around, or wrap it around the cables, hit it with some sequins.
Tube decor was like a 50s thing, wasn't
70s.
it? 70s?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
And the bedazzler is like, I want to take this thing and make it a little more tacky. How can I do that? Bedazzle.
I do not endorse.
I want to make my stuff slightly tackier than it currently is. And I need to accomplish this quickly. Just bedazzle.
If you think that's how
If you think bedazzling is like the peak of just decor in general, or just making things look awesome, no. just
You know, the best way to color your walls is to paint them white and then have LED RGB.
bedazzle them.
Oh no, you have RGB track lighting like above and below the walls, and then you can just change the color of the LED lights, and because it's white, it will reflect back whatever color, and then it will literally look like. You'd
Well-
like diffuse the LEDs, like you'd put like a diffuse filter.
Actually, this goes back to something that my boss did. He took a laser etched acrylic panel and took an LED light strip and put it on top, and it glows through the acrylic. And an LED run with like a small controller is like $100. And you can put as much LED strip on the other end as you want, and it will power the whole damn thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, that especially for case lighting. I've wanted to get a new case so I could do some case lighting, but then if you have to go to sleep and.
Oh yeah, no. So way back in the day, I had my very first desktop that I built had a very nice clear acrylic side panel. Like the whole side was acrylic.
Right.
And I thought it would be so cool to get all of my fans to light up blue. And blue is a very bright color when it comes to LEDs.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have a problem with it because it was tucked under my desk and I slept. So, like, the desk was here and my bed was here. So I slept here, and that wasn't a problem for me. But it pointed directly to my roommate's bed. And he's like, if you don't turn that thing off, I'm throwing it down the stairs.
But you probably had like a video uploading or something.
No, I just left it on because it...
Yeah, I...
So, the thing I did instead was I went and got myself some cold cathode tubes that were black lights. And they had... It took up one of your PCI slots in the back.
Right.
It didn't actually plug into it. But you could put a switch there so that you could turn them on and off. So I did that for a while, and then I just realized I was leaving them off all the time. So I just took them out of my computer.
You still have them?
I have no idea whatever happened to them.
That's
I think
kinda
I gave
cool.
them to my brother, and then nothing happened to them after that. Like,
I have
I
a-
didn't use
I have
them.
a fake black light up there. Doesn't actually...
Yeah.
do much.
So it took a Molex to power it, and it was a nice idea. I put one here, and then one was here, and then it just blacklit the whole thing. And my motherboard had parts of it that were UV reactive.
You're right.
And the acrylic reacts to UV very weirdly.
I've heard of people putting like little decoration or monuments in their computer.
Or you could just do what some people do and take a fish tank, fill it with mineral oil, and just drop it in there.
Oh,
with some-
there are videos about that.
Yeah,
stuff,
it's actually not even that hard. You just plug up the things that you don't want oil in,
yeah.
drop the whole thing into a fish tank.
Don't use water.
No, don't.
Not even distilled water.
No. Mineral oil, it's actually really cheap. You can get 15 gallons of it for $100.
Linus Tech Tips has a video, like they have a mineral oil rig that they were doing it. Totally documented.
Yeah, like, go to Craigslist, find a 10-gallon fish tank. Pretty much they'll be free, because people, when you get a fish tank and you don't want a fish tank, it's very hard to get rid of the fish tanks. So people will just list them free to good home because Jesus Christ is taking up space and you can't do anything else with it. So you take it, you clean it, you fill it with mineral oil, and just drop the motherboard right in there.
Make sure everything is clean, and then when you're handling the mineral oil, don't wear a nice shirt. That stains.
Actually, if you get mineral oil on your shirt, a very easy way to get rid of it is dab a little dish soap on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because dish soap contains detergents, and detergents take care of grease. Mineral oil being like grease.
You know, that's a funny thing about how we still get away, try to like scoop up oils from the oceans. Speaking of oils, we're using technology where all we use is like, let's stuff a bunch of booms like with hair and stuff or like spongy stuff, and let's surround it in the ocean. And then let's pour some Dawn dish soap in the middle, so it goes like. It-
Perfectly fine.
Well, I just think like, why don't we have like a sea vacuum, like a ship that just literally vacuums up?
Because
and
that
then-
requires a ship to be built with a vacuum in mind, and that's more money than some sponge and some Dawn and buoys that we just happen to have around.
Well, I mean, it just seems a bit
It's like
ancient
there
technology
are-
that's never been upgraded.
Like, if you spill oil on your kitchen, and you can't just soak that or mop it up, because water...
No, you like flour it or whatever, and then you sweep up the flour.
Flour is so messy in itself.
Well-
That's a completely new mess now.
Or like
Cat
wood.
litter.
Yeah.
Literally cat litter or wood shavings.
I guess.
And
gas
we've been
stations
doing
use
that for centuries. And there is product that soaks it up better and faster, but it costs more than a bag of wood chips.
Right.
Like, sawdust is a byproduct. People literally give it away. And it works. And it's the right price. Usually free. Or $5 for a giant fucking bag of it.
Sawdust makes great kindling.
Yeah,
That
because
really-
it's dry and flammable.
Well, if you were like ever in the Boy Scouts and you just had like a stash of like sawdust and you were like struggling to get your fireman shit and you just pour it on there. Hey, look! Just
Another fun thing is baking powder, not baking soda.
right.
Baking powder contains cornstarch and a few other fun things, and it sets on fire and leaves a very lovely cloud, and it's very pretty and sparkly, and there's a little bit of great. Baking powder.
Mythbusters.
Because if you're reaching in your cabinet to take care of a grease fire and you grab the baking powder instead of the baking soda, it explodes. It's the worst.
Don't ever put a brick of ice in a deep fat fryer.
Or water in general.
Yes.
Don't put water in your deep fat fryer. Jesus Christ.
No, I mean, the low popping
It's-
sounds might sound cool at first, but when it really starts going...
Well, the thing is, the water and the oil separate, and the water boils on top of the oil without going into the oil, so it just splatters it all over the place, and it takes some of the grease with it, because a small amount of grease dissolves into hot water because of how solubility works. And just big old mess. Don't do it.
And if it ever catches fire...
Which it will. Right.
You
Just-
better hope you have a lot of flour. You know, fire suppression systems, how come they just don't, like, fill it with flour?
What fire suppression systems do, if they're not water-based, is they use a powder that is just reacted baking soda. If you take baking soda and vinegar and react it, the little stuff that's left behind
Mm-hmm.
is now neutral-based and very good at fire suppression.
That's true.
And that's why I've got a lot of baking soda. Because baking soda itself will work, but if you react the baking soda with vinegar and then use it, it works even better.
Yes.
And fire suppression systems use pretty much baking soda. They just powder coat the whole thing. Because flour is flammable.
Speaking of powder coating things, would you ever powder paint your case a different color?
Well, it depends. If powder coating it a different color costs more than getting a new case in the color that I want, I would not consider it.
Because you know why you have to
Because
powder.
that's just cost effective.
You know why you have to powder coat it? Because paint won't stick to it. They have to like charge the paint.
Well,
particles.
so the way powder coating works is
you have to magnetize the paint
Nope.
to the.
the way powder coating works is it sprays a chemical on there and then they heat it up and it bakes. It's very similar to glazing pottery. I had to look it up for a completely unrelated issue. The reason you use powder coating is it can handle heat better than paint.
That's true.
You can paint your case if you do a metallic primer first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you go to a hardware store and find automotive spray paint that has a self-etching primer, you can totally just use that on a metal case. And as far as plastic cases go, if you use an acrylic primer and then a regular acrylic spray on top of that, it will work. It might flake after a while, and that's why you add a third layer of vinyl clear varnish, and that will keep your paint in there for a good long time.
Would you ever get cut like an artist to custom paint your case, like with a character or something?
Maybe? I mean, I guess.
I've seen some of the work out there.
Oh yeah,
Pretty-
it's really great. But again, after it's painted, you have to hit it with some kind of clear coat to keep that paint from flaking off.
I've seen there's a Facebook post of a video of someone doing like a total custom Charizard on a
No.
Game Boy,
A cheaper thing you can
original Game Boy case.
do is you can go to like Vistaprint
Oh yeah.
or Cafe Press and get a vinyl die cut sticker made and just sticker your case. And the adhesives on that will last a hell of a lot longer than a lot of paint jobs.
But the way you put it on, you want to make sure there's no air bubbles.
Right. And that's why as you're applying it, you go from one end to the other with some kind of squeegee, like a window squeegee or a credit card. Some flat edge
Mm-hmm.
to squeeze the bubbles out.
Right. What do you think about 4K gaming versus 2K gaming at this point with the current technology? Because even a Titan X struggles at 4K.
I don't game above 1080.
Okay,
Like-
so
This is completely something that I can't even do.
let me tell you my experience then. I like 2K gaming because of the DPI scaling is just perfect. I mean, Windows 10 handles it automatically, but even at 4K, you need to raise the DPI scaling so much that you might as well just be running 2 or 1080.
Now, let me ask you this. Have you tried to 10K game on Linux?
10K?
Or not 10K. 4K game on Linux.
I haven't.
That should be something you should try. And then
But-
come back and then let us know how it worked.
Well, it depends on what game you're running too. Because if you're doing like League of Legends or Dota, you might like the ultra wide 4K. You can have your windows open and your shortcuts. And
Or
the,
if you have taste in games, you can play something that isn't League of Legends.
yes, because I don't actually play League of Legends. I've watched people play, and I'm like, no.
It's
I mean, lots of people
it's
play
an
it.
okay game, and it's fun to play.
It's huge.
But the community is a bunch of assholes, and they ruin it. They have ruined all of it. Like, part of it is, like, the Major League Gaming thing was like, League of Legends, this is pretty fun and competitive, we'll do this. And now everybody's like, I must play this like I'm going to win money. Every day. And if you're not born with the intrinsic knowledge on how the game works and plays, you will be treated to a plethora of assholes
Mm-hmm.
that are so colorful and creative, and they're insulting.
Like Xbox Live gamers.
Worse. Because Xbox Live gamers are just... they're like 14-year-old kids that don't grasp empathy and just spout, things that are kind of racy or
Or
like,
speaking
really
about
homophobic or
relations
whatever, but
with your
like
parents.
League of Legend people just there's a certain art to it. They just really go for the throat. They're like, yeah, I wish you would just die, and then you find out that your family died and just that's what killed you, the great sadness that your whole family has just died. Like they get inventive. And I appreciate that, but not while I'm trying to play a game.
Right. I don't understand like the whole hostile nature. Gaming Wildlife did a funny parody of the different consoles and like the hostilities between them, and it's really funny. It's like
Right. But like, so League of Legends itself, and there is some more news about this,
mm-hmm.
is they have realized that their community is just a colossal quagmire of dickholes. And
Must
they
be
have-
nice to be the creator at this point.
Well, when I was at PAX East in like 2011, I was talking to one of the people that was a community manager for it, And he was just like, yeah, absolutely. The worst community.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they know, like, the people that play their game are just not good people. And the thing is, the closer your summoner level gets to the max, the more and more you become that person. And I guarantee there needs to be studies done on how that works. Like, the more you play the game and the closer you get, and when you finally get to the max level, you are now them. Just
Yeah.
something happens along the way that just
Well,
fucks you up.
It's like in the workplace, especially retail. If you've been there a while and you know how it is, like all the new people become like
Jaded. The word you're looking for, that you don't know you're looking for, is you become jaded.
Well, I mean,
And so the other thing is, their community is garbage, and they've been trying desperately to put something in place to make the community fix itself.
you
Like,
know.
they're doing everything but getting moderators in there to actively participate.
Is it because
in
they don't want
stopping it.
monitors? They don't.
Because it's expensive. You have to pay somebody to sit there and babysit. And you have to hire tons of babysitters.
Don't their moms do that for them anyway?
No, God, no. So you can either hire tons and tons of babysitters, which is what, like, World of Warcraft does. They have all of those GMs, and those GMs step in and, like, okay, I've got my dad pants on, time to take care of business, but League
Yeah,
of Legends
But
exploded faster than they could keep up with the community.
that's true.
So they're now retroactively trying to fix a problem that's existed too long because they couldn't foresee this happening. Like, part of it is they were hit with success before they knew that they wanted that amount of success.
Right. Then that's a lot of success.
Right. So
It's like how Minecraft, no one expected that to take off. Or Portal. Like, Valve never expected
or
that
like
to take
Final
off.
Fantasy 14, like when they relaunched Final Fantasy 14 as like A Realm Reborn and they fixed everything, they realized people would play their game again, but their servers, all of them across the board, crashed because they're like, we didn't expect people to actually play this again, like right away. Like, we weren't prepared for success. That just fucking crushed us.
It's kind of weird to think how you couldn't be prepared for success.
Right.
Then again, it happens
Like,
so often.
they're so modest, they didn't expect, like, millions of people to play their game suddenly out of the blue.
See, there's modesty and then there's frugal.
Well, no, it was literally straight modesty. Like, they
Oh,
were
yeah.
surprised people wanted to play it again. But, so the other thing with League of Legends is they're trying to... Like, they had the tribunal system,
Right.
where if you were, like, being an asshole in a game, and X amount of people reported you, you would be set aside, and then they would lecture you, or something like that. Or you would be banned for X amount of hours, or whatever. But then people started using that as a system to continue to bully people. Like, the tools that they put in place to stop the bullying became tools to then bully more people.
Mm-hmm.
So they've come up with other ways where they're like, you can reward or punish people, and they're trying to make all these other things to make it more friendly for new players because they realize they hit a plateau. Like, at a certain point, they hit the most amount of people that could eat this amount of garbage, and no more. Like, this is your limit. In order to get past this limit, you have to get new players. In order to get new players, they want to actually play the game. And you can't play the game if you have to eat X amount of pounds of garbage to continue playing the game. Like, you can play against bots, and that's a great way to learn how to play the game up to a certain point, because not all of the characters are available in bot form.
The AI
The
just
AI
isn't the
doesn't
same.
react the same way as
It
another
doesn't
player would.
badmouth you.
That's why I played bots, is because they don't speak. And most of the game is, if you're better than what their AI was programmed for, you end up just babysitting the computer playing against the computer.
Yeah.
And, like, okay, I guess, but there's just... there's so much that needs to be fixed, and the most effective way of doing it is too expensive. And I don't know why they won't. It's not like they're not making money on that.
Well,
Microtransactions.
World of Warcraft seems to be better.
Well, World of Warcraft is a Blizzard product, and they had from
Didn't they bought by? Oh no, it's a Wizard of the Coast
It
product.
was Activision.
Activision.
Activision bought out Blizzard ages ago, and it hasn't really affected anything. Activision makes more money now.
That's true.
I don't remember what else they
Do
push anymore.
do Activision
Like-
even make games? Are they like making pianos or something now? We make cooking
I don't-
utensils now.
Didn't they make the Darksiders games? Wasn't that Activision?
The only few Activision games I have are Star Trek games.
Right, they used to make a lot of games back in the day, and I guess they must have been making something if they could afford to buy out Blizzard.
Maybe they just won the lot. Like some dude in accounting like won the lottery and be like,
I
yeah.
was like, hey, I've got a bunch of money. Suddenly I want to buy a company for our company and then make nothing on it.
Maybe a promotion. I
Like, Blizzard was doing really well, and
actually,
I guess
guys, I don't think
Activision-
that's actually how it happened. Just so
I
you
guess
know.
Activision had to have been doing really well in order to afford the ability to buy out the shares to get control of Blizzard. Like, I guess I really should look into that. That's really confusing.
Yeah.
Like, they made World of Warcraft, and World of Warcraft is still really popular, and they've got Hearthstone, and they got the StarCraft 2,
Well, wasn't it as
and
pop-
Diablo 2.
Was it as popular when they bought them out?
Yeah, absolutely. They bought out World of Warcraft back at the peak of their subscriber base.
Oh.
Like, their subscriber base is starting to slip because the game is stale at this point, and they've been trying to take a lot of the stuff away from the players.
Well, nothing gold can stay. That's
Well,
Robert E. Frost poem.
They
Look it up.
part of it was like Mista Pandera. So no. End of Cataclysm transitioning to Mista Pandera. They started making the content more accessible to casual players, and they realized that that's all they had to do. Their hardcore base didn't matter as much, because if you get enough casual players hooked, and they play X amount of hours every day, they still have to pay for a monthly subscription fee to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So the numbers of subscriptions and just the raw amount of people playing was more important than having content for people to do. Like,
Which is a really
so part of
jab into that hardcore.
right,
base.
and part of it was Mista and Pandera. They released 2 raids after it launched, so that means the content that existed in their expansion of Mista Pandera was literally it for a year and a half. Then they launched. Well, within that year and a half, they had all of the content that came at launch, plus 2 raids and 2 dungeons that were actually just up levels of older dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
It's like
A year and a half and fucking nothing.
480 days.
Right. Just a year and a half went by and they released fucking next to nothing.
I mean, it's like Lineage or Aeon.
Right. And just,
Were those ever big?
I have no idea.
I played Lineage too for a while. It was weird. Then
Right.
Aeon.
So
Just tried
each
it.
one of those raids had looking for raid mode, which means you open up the looking for raid and you're like, I want to do fucking the first leg of the garage raid. And they would pair you up with 25 other people and then you would go do it. But because it was meant to be like the intro raid and to get you geared to do the higher up difficulties, they didn't add any mechanics to it. Like, most of them are, you ran in, and if you fucked up super hardcore, as long as everybody didn't die, you would win. That's like baby's first raid.
Nice. Yeah.
And,
You gotta start somewhere. The journey of 1,000 miles starts
well,
with a single
the
step.
thing is, you can get all of the gear you ever need from doing that, from looking for raid. They then implemented in, because they had this looking for raid feature, loot doesn't drop. Your individual character rolls.
No.
So it would roll for you whether or not you got something from that. And they had a system where every time you didn't get gear, there'd be a higher and higher percentage added to it to actually get something from the bosses. And it would always hit on the boss you didn't need shit from. And you would have the same pair of gloves 7 times in a row. It didn't check to see if there was something from the boss you actually still needed. It just like, here's loot.
Mm.
And there was a point system, and the whole thing was a conveyor belt of gear. And then if you wanted to actually start doing the harder content, you would now have to go back to the way it used to be and find people and set up schedules. So
yeah. So what RPG would you advise people to play now?
Well, you mean MMO?
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIV. Part of the issue that Blizzard had was all of the raid content changed difficulty because of party size.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, looking for raid was just roll in, beat some shit up, you win, here's some loot.
Right.
Flex was if you had more than 10 people, but fewer than 25, here's a raid for that. And for every 3 people added past 10, so like 10, 13, 16, so on and so forth, they would step up the difficulty to make it count for the new players that you've added.
Mm.
So if your raid had 15 people, you were perfect. If you added a 16th person, you then had to add 2 more people to bring it up to just below the next mark in order for it to be good. So, not a perfect system. So 10-man was harder than that.
So get 14 friends,
Right.
basically.
So 10-man was harder than that, and 25-man was the hardest. And then there was a 10 hard and a 25 hard, making each raid have 6 versions of the same fight.
Now, would you?
And
is
that's what they called adding more content.
Now, what do you think about random matchmaking and versus being able to select friends?
Well, if you're talking from an MMO sense, random party members, if it's...
Look at the camera.
Oh, sorry.
You better do that.
Sorry. If you're talking about MMOs, World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV and Knights of the Old Republic, the dungeons, which are usually your 4 to 5 to 6 player dungeons, depending on what they say is the party size, are totally fine in random. Like, there's the tank, the healer, and the amount of DPS they consider to make the whole party complete.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy did 4 because historically that's a Final Fantasy party.
Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft did 5, so it's a healer, tank, 3 DPS. The difference between those two is now that there's 1 less DPS in the 4-player party, the healer is required to do a certain amount of DPS at certain points to make it past it. Where World of Warcraft, the healer never had to DPS because there were 3 DPS that handled the DPSing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's so dirty.
right. Sorry. The damagers then. The people that did the damage.
No, it's fine.
And Knights of the Old Republic, I'm trying to remember, I think it's a 5-man party. I haven't played it in a while, but anyway.
Well, Knights in the Old Republic are only playable now with a bunch of community patches, right?
No, not that. The MMO that came out.
Oh.
So, sorry, not Knights of Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMO.
Oh.
I believe is a 5-player party too. So there's... No, I think it's a 4. Anyway, tank, healer, an amount of DPS. And random groupings, that is fine. Because if you're the healer and you're queuing as the healer, you get in right away.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way it breaks down is there's always a lot of people doing damage. Not a lot of people can tank or heal because those require a lot more finessing and raid awareness.
Yeah.
Tanking being the lowest amount of players because that's a lot of responsibility and you have to know how to do it well. So, in all MMOs, tanks lowest, healers right above that, DPS fucking everywhere. So when you're doing random grouping, you will always, if you're doing whatever the looking for group is of that MMO, if you're queuing as DPS, go make lunch. Come back from lunch. You're still in queue. I know in World of Warcraft, in the middle of Mist of Pandaria, I was looking for group on my Warlock, which is just DPSs.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 45 minutes to get into a dungeon.
That's a long time. That's like waiting for a popular restaurant.
Yeah. So you go and do quests and gain experience, or go just Tumblr the entire time. You've got 45 minutes to kill before you can do your one daily dungeon that you have to do. So a lot of MMOs try to push people around, or like they incentivize healing or tanking as opposed to DPS.
Wouldn't it make more sense just to instance these different dungeons?
Oh, they are instanced. But in order to get into the group, you have to have the whole party set up in the right amount. So in World of Warcraft, you're like, I want to go do a dungeon. I open up my looking for group, which is I know the shortcut still. So you hit it. You're like, I want to do my daily Zandalari dungeon, or whatever, because you get a boost of the points to buy gear from doing your dungeon once a day.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, I'm queuing as a Warlock, and my only option is the damage. So I'm now stuck in the damage queue. If I have a friend who has a priest, and the priest has an off-spec of healing, they can jump in. But in that game, it's the class has different roles. In Final Fantasy XIV, each class has a specific role, but you can switch your class at any time. So,
Right.
like, the classes in Final Fantasy XIV, there's, like, the 3 tanking classes, the 3 healing classes, and the rest are damages, like melee, range, spellcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have one character that has all of these classes unlocked. Where in World of Warcraft, your Warlock will only be a Warlock, and he has 3 different flavors of Warlock to choose from.
Right.
And Knights of the Old... Yeah, the Old Republic MMO went with the World of Warcraft option, where it's, you're this thing, here are your 3 flavors, this flavor is healing. You can heal as this one. If you queue up and you're this flavor, you are now the healer in that group. But like priests had 2 healing flavors and a damage flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So what do you like those MMOs, RPGs, or do you like the AAA games more? Because I'm more of a AAA gamer. You're more of an MMO and RPG.
I play a lot of MMOs because there's a community thing to it. If I'm going to play an RPG that isn't an MMO, I like dungeon crawls. Not like the roguelike games. Like, those are fun.
We did an episode on that, by the way.
Right.
Look at the cards
fun,
for more.
but you will die and have new characters like 2 minutes later. Like, God, I lasted the longest in Magicite for like 20 minutes before I just fucking died.
Yeah, it's those.
But like Eye of the Beholder, have you played Eye of the Beholder?
I don't think I have.
So the old first-person dungeon crawly games are some of my absolute favorites, and they're super old school. And Legend of Grimrock, which was kickstarted a few years ago, is like a a modern version of the first-person dungeon crawlies, and I love them. They're the best. And I like RPGs like the Dragon Quests or the Final Fantasies. They're fun.
I played one of the Final Fantasies as well.
I didn't like 13. And I'm not usually alone in that. Because 13, if you are looking for an excellent hallway simulator, it is the best hallway simulator out there.
Hallway simulator?
So, Final Fantasy, as well as most RPGs, like, let's just say Skyrim, for example.
Right.
There's a map. You can go around in the map. There's lots of different things to see. Like, there are towns, and in the town there's a set map. But when you walk out of the town, there's a world to explore.
Right.
In Final Fantasy XIII, it is literally a linear path. The entire game.
Oh.
You run down a hallway. You get to the end of the hallway. There's a cutscene. And then they place you in a new hallway. and then you run down that hallway.
Mm.
And occasionally, there'll be, like, a branch in the hallway, and you're, like, super excited. But that only leads to it ended with a treasure chest. That was the real hallway the whole time.
Mm.
And though very few fleeting moments that open up the map, it's just a really big room, and there's a hallway again at the other end.
Mm.
So you can just go all over this one small part of the map, but in order to continue, you have to funnel back into the hallway, which is over there.
Is that a code limitation or a stylistic choice?
Part of it was they wanted to tell a story, but they didn't want the player to get involved.
So like a movie.
Right. So
That's actually a criticism I have with some of these new games. Like in that Call of Duty, press X to pay respect.
Yeah.
It was bad. I don't understand. If you didn't want the player to like do anything, just make a movie.
right, and the Final Fantasy 7 and up, as opposed to 6 and lower. Like 6 and lower had some moments where they were like, okay, we're going to do this plot thing, but overall, you could go to places that you weren't supposed to go to yet and get a few cool things before going back to the story. And like, yeah, they're story-driven games, and that's where they're supposed to go. And Final Fantasy VII, same way. But when they started adding cutscenes, like straight up pre-rendered cutscenes.
No, keep going.
Oh, okay.
I was
So
just looking at Elap's time.
when they started adding pre-rendered cutscenes, it was focus went from story-driven gameplay to gameplay, and the story is more important.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 went back a little bit away from that, and then 10 was like, we got voice acting now. It's not good voice acting, but we have it, so we have to use it everywhere.
Do you like pre-rendered cinematic trailers versus versus rendered? But I just thought of a better question. Remember back in the day, those games where they would film like a movie, but
The FMV games?
Yeah, the FMV.
Oh man, I love me a good FMV game.
I have
There-
I have Star Trek Borg someplace around here.
There is very few full motion video games that are not just cheesily delightful. Just like Night Trap. Great.
Have you played Star Trek Borg? The FM.
Is that the one that had what's his face in it?
Q.
Oh, is that the one that? Oh,
It was
I
a-
haven't, but I have seen a playthrough of it. Oh God, no, it's super great. There was one that had who was the guy that played Doc Brown in Back to the Future?
I forget his name.
Yeah. So anyway, there was one that had him play Klingon, and it was full motion video game. Oh yeah, so good, so good.
So back to my other question about, do you prefer pre-rendered or in-game rendered? Because with improving graphics cards, some like nowadays the in-game cinematics are better than like games are pre-rendered when they were first coming out.
Well, here's the thing: what is more immersive?
Like the Half-Life way of doing
No.
it, where you get to walk around the cinematic and play with stuff. As
Those are great. But that's like some stories happening while you're playing the game.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a really good idea. Great way to do it.
I love storytelling through immersion versus just someone telling you the story.
Right. If you're playing a game and like the story's playing out, like you're not in control of it, but the cutscene is happening with the in-game graphics, like Chrono Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves Chrono Trigger. And one of the nice things that Chrono Trigger did was they didn't have to have a pre-rendered, beautiful cutscene. They were just like, okay, at this point, your character's going to talk to this character. They're going to talk to each other for a bit. We get some story from that. Great. When they were like, okay, let's stop the game, play this video, okay, game can play again. The graphics were nicer and people liked those, and they were a nice reward, but they're not as engaging as you didn't see the point where it stopped the game, played the video, stopped the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more immersive, and I like that a lot less. Or I like the in-game graphics because it's nicer and more immersive.
Now,
than
what about
stop, play, stop.
what about the ones where it's like the pre-render is a render of the in-game graphics, so you can't always tell, but they do it because they want to tell a story without like dropped frames or whatever. Will they try to match the pre-render to the in-game?
You can still tell the difference.
Yeah.
Because your game had to pause, load a video, then play again.
I don't know. In Mass Effect, when they
Like-
had those endless elevators, and hiding the load screens.
Yeah, I mean, hiding the load screens into something that's a little bit more immersive than just a fucking load screen with a little disc spinning in the middle. Or like, oh, here's a character drawing, disc spinning in the middle. Like, no, I think disguising your load screens is a great idea. Like, the original Resident Evil disguised them behind a door opening. It's different. You're opening a door, the next room's loading, you see the door's opening, and you're like, oh my god, I wonder what's in this. It builds up the suspense.
Yeah.
Now, the Silent Hill way of hiding load screens behind terrifying fog
Well,
is
that
absolutely brilliant.
that fog though was because of the limitation,
Right,
and they just let's use it.
but the fog added more to the game's atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like, half the reason Silent Hill was as terrifying is like you're in a town, your little radio's going off letting you know something's nearby, but you can't see shit because of this fog. Like, they loaded the enemy, they're letting you know the enemy's coming, but you don't know where, you don't know, oh my god, just... It was really a lot to
Well,
handle.
how did they hire? How did they do the load screen in that?
They didn't have to. The fog was because they wanted no load screen.
Oh, right, because
So they rendered the whole town and then dropped a fog down so the PlayStation didn't shit itself trying to render the whole map at the same time. So that the only things you see are what's immediately in the field of
they
view.
just use like ambient occlusion or something.
Right. Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then when the series started getting better and they didn't have to use the fog anymore, they lost a lot in that. Because they kept the fog in the second one just because it was a really neat atmospheric tool to use. And when they started taking that away so you could see the beautiful cutscenes, seeing something terrifying from like a football field away that they wanted you to see because it looked really nice and like they put a lot of work
Look at
into
these
it.
new skeleton animations. I'm like,
Right. Like, there's this terrifying thing, a football field away. Be afraid of it, because it'll get closer eventually. Like,
it's like when Crysis first came out on the CryEngine. Look at this beautiful thing we made.
we made an engine that can do nature documentaries super well. But we also were told we had to put a game in it, I guess. So here, there's some game, but in order to get to the rest of the game, take a walk.
Well,
Enjoy
yeah.
the scenery a little bit.
I mean, sure, it runs great on modern hardware, but at the time.
Oh yeah, no, it ran like poop.
But-
running Crysis used to be like the benchmark. Like it was a benchmark instead
Well,
of a game.
Crysis 3 is that benchmark now, and
Yeah, no,
I got this.
Every continuing part of the series is like, it's a benchmark to gauge your hardware in more than a game, because
Well, even on my 980
Like,
Ti, I mean, it's like
Crysis I hear is fun. I don't know a lot of people that rave and rant about the series outside of people that are like, my computer can run Crysis 3 at maximum settings now. I'm like, that's great. What's the story like? And people are like, it's pretty. That's what the story's like. It's a pretty game.
yeah, that's the pieces. Okay, so we're just over an hour. So it's come to the point when because the video crapped out last time. I am so happy that I recorded the audio separately that day. But I talked about a giveaway, and if I get 100 subscribers by the end of January, I'm giving away this thing. Look at
Of
it.
course, if you get 100 subscribers before that, you can just start the giveaway sooner.
Yeah.
So, as soon as 100 subscribers.
I would like more because I don't want to like have like one person or like 3 people and like it's a 1 in 5 chance you'll win.
Right, so as soon as you get 100 people,
Yeah. Then it would be like a 30 or 40 day giveaway
Yeah.
thing. This is the Gigabyte WindForce 760 factory overclocked. I should sew shirts so I can be like they're factory overclocked. Anyway, this is the 4 gigabyte version, so you will have no problem running. You know, I was running Skyrim and stuff in 2K, and this could handle it.
that's fancy.
So you won't be disappointed. I did not like overclock or flash any BIOS, so it works. I had to upgrade for video rendering reasons so it can do it faster.
Also,
You're
because
getting-
why not?
Yeah, you're getting 2 DPI, HDMI and a display port, and you can do 3-way SLI with this. It's a great card, great cooling, always stay cool, you know, like around 50, 40, was, you know, or 52 was what it got. But yeah, I
Dog
don't know.
needs a new home.
Yeah, I thought about keeping it, but I'm like, I thought maybe I should just give it as a giveaway, and it'd be so much better. It comes with all the original packaging, so like perfect. So when you like open it, and like it'll still have that new card smell, which would be really nice. This card isn't actually that old. I mean, this is about like what a 950 is today. Kinda.
Sure.
A little better. So, you know, definitely get subscribed for that. Tell all your friends. It is going to be a U.S. only thing. I don't want to have to deal with like international stuff yet. I'm not big enough yet. Can't all be PewDiePie.
Or Markiplier.
Yeah.
He's so handsome.
So when I get 100 subscribers, I do the giveaway, and at that time I will determine the best course of action for picking the random person.
Right.
Guess what, Steven? You win because you're really close, and I can just no, none of that. It's going to be random. So, all right. So that's our show. Thank you for watching that show on the weekend. A little on the nose, do you think?
Whatever.
Whatever.
It
It's catchy, right?
It's functional.
Yes.
Works as intended.
Yeah.
It
So
does what it says on the tin.
so stay tuned for future episodes every week, on the weekend, naturally. I'm your host, Tyler, of course. This is Steven. Hi, Steven. Hit that like button, hit that dislike button if you have to. Get subscribed, leave a comment below. When you get the time, we'll read them when we start getting comments.
Do we get comments?
I don't yet.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
I
exciting.
had like 1 or 2.
Leave a comment. It's
I
exciting.
left plugs on like other channels.
Oh, that's exciting.
I've actually got a few. Anyway, thank you for watching. Bye.